first caution anybody before they just started a nonprofit to think through what that's going to mean for them, and see if there is potentially another nonprofit already doing that work that instead they could become very involved in and supporting.
Right.
Because we definitely don't want to duplicate a lot of efforts.
That's right.
Instead,
yes.
we want to work collaboratively to improve them. But it's a process. You have to apply through the IRS for a nonprofit status. You need to establish your board of directors. You need to have bylaws, just like you would when you're setting up a business, right? You still need bylaws, and who's responsible, who's ultimately responsible, and then figuring out how you fund that program.
Yeah.
And that's the overwhelming part for so many people who want to start a nonprofit is, how do I get paid? Right? How do I fund this program?
Today's episode is about giving back. And I know you're like, Victoria, I'm a small business owner. I'm just trying to make my business run. What do you mean giving back? I don't even have enough. Well, my guest today is Gabby Benson. She has over 20 years of experience in fundraising and leadership in the nonprofit space. She owns Sprout Fundraising and Consulting, and she has personally helped me with the tips and tricks to raise almost $20,000 for nonprofit organizations. So we're going to be breaking down how you can give back and what that means for your business and your legacy. Thank you so much, Gabby, for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Victoria.
I am so honored for you to be here. And I know you've helped me personally, but I know a lot of questions on the minds of small business owners are like, what do you mean give back? Like what does that even mean?
You know, I think philanthropy, generosity, giving back is part of all of us. Like we all have an innate need to want to help others or solve problems. And philanthropy and charitable giving is how we do that. So even just as a woman, you know, there are very many things I feel very passionate about.
Right.
You know, I want to help other women. I want to support children, moms. You may be really passionate about breast cancer because it's something that has been impacted your family, or you want to support organizations that help folks who are experiencing homelessness because you believe that no one should sleep on the streets at night.
Yeah.
Right. So philanthropy is just the way that we solve problems and help solve problems, fill our cup up with something much beyond ourselves. And it doesn't have to be in the way of a Melinda Gates, right? Or, you know, in the ways that people with huge wealth give back. Giving for most people might be a $10 donation, a $50 donation. Many people do it through their own like churches. They give on a weekly basis. That's very important to them. They support their schools where their kids go. And I think philanthropy just has to be a part of everybody's lives. It fills you up with so much. And so giving back can look a lot of different ways.
That's right. I like that because you also mentioned in the article of Boss Ladies magazine, we have volume 2 out now. So if you haven't picked up a copy, please make sure you do. It's free. So make sure you check on the website. But you provided us with multiple ways that we can give back. Can you share some of that with us?
I feel really passionately about women who take an opportunity that they have, who are leaders, who are experts in something, and supporting organizations who need that expertise. And too many nonprofit boards don't have enough women at the table. They don't have enough women at the table to bring a unique voice, a unique perspective, or even sometimes a lived experience that can change how an organization thinks about how they're serving the people or the place that their mission is really focused on. So the article that I wrote for you was really about encouraging boss ladies to get involved in their community, identifying a cause that connects with their mission as an organization, whatever their business is, and aligning what they do to include philanthropy in their own business work. So that might be serving on a board or volunteering. So if you are a stylist, right, or a photographer, maybe you want to volunteer with a group that has low-cost clothes for folks who are in need of new clothing for back to school, or helping dress moms who are trying to get back into the workforce in professional clothes. You might find something that really fits really nicely with whatever it is your brand and your business is. But nonprofits also need resources.
Right.
So cash resources, right?
Yes.
So maybe as a boss lady, as an entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur, you set aside a dollar amount that you donate out of certain sales to go to a certain cause. And maybe that's seasonal. So in October, maybe you're donating specifically for domestic violence because that's a cause that's really important to you and it aligns with your mission. So maybe every sale of a course or a coaching package or something that you might do goes to a charitable cause. And that's a way to elevate your own business, but also support that nonprofit. And then the other way is like sponsorships. Nonprofits always need sponsors for events and festivals, and putting your company out there in a sponsorship brings brand awareness to you. So it's positive for you. There's tax benefits to that. But it also supports that organization, giving them the resources they need to run a really fantastic event so they can raise more money.
That's good. So I do at least 2 of the 3 that you just mentioned. I set aside a portion of every photo shoot to give to a nonprofit organization, and I also help raise some money through our events every year too. And I remember the first time that I was going to do this, I had no clue, and I was like, Gabby, can we have a consultation? Like, I need help. And you pretty much broke it down for me, and it was very helpful, and I'm so thankful for that, because without that, we wouldn't have been able to raise that much money. The other thing that I think we did that was very impressionable for me was when we were trying the auction, silent auction. I remember you coming into the gala, you were like, we're going to put this price on this one, because we're like running behind on time and everything like that. And that really helped us too. So I think that's also another way, wouldn't you say, like by donating some services for silent auction?
Yeah, absolutely. Donating items. A lot of organizations need materials too. So they need toilet paper and cleaning products like we do for our own houses. So donating in-kind products or items, baskets, gift certificates that align with your business for a silent auction helps them raise money in other ways, and plus brings you, as a business owner, a new potential client.
Right. And I like when you tie that into our brands to our building our businesses, because I think as small business owners, sometimes we don't think outside of the box. When we said giving back, it's almost like, we're giving back, but we're also receiving back too, like putting, that brand awareness goes a long way. Plus, you could also get a client, like you just said. So,
yeah, I mean, your customers, your audience, whatever that is for you, wants to know that you are you have corporate responsibility within your business, right? And that you care about the community you serve. And sometimes it's the distinguisher for you as a photographer. It was a nice distinguisher to say this amount of dollars out of the package that we work with together goes towards charity, and it makes you stand out in a crowd. And it's another great communication piece that you can promote for yourself, right? And building a relationship with a nonprofit that you care about.
Yeah. And I also feel like the ladies that I photograph, when they hear that, it makes them feel like they're contributing to something bigger as well.
Yes. Exactly.
Wow, that's good. All right. So you talked about joining a board. I've never done that. I've been kind of thinking about that, but like, how do you even get started with doing that?
Yeah, I would look around. First, I'd identify the things that you care about the most.
Okay.
Right? What are the things that problems in the world that you want to help solve, or issues that have impacted you and your own family or your upbringing that you feel like you could add a voice to, or just looking around your community at what needs to be done in your community. If you see throughout your own community that there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of families that have to sleep in their cars or in motels, or kids who come to school and they're hungry and they don't have enough like clean clothes, or their shoes always have holes. Whatever you identify, like, okay, I need to help here because I feel a calling.
Right.
And sometimes it's just something in you that goes, this is the thing that I need to do. And so find that thing. First, find your thing that you're most passionate about. And then do some research. There are millions of nonprofits in the world.
When you say do a research, where, how do you go on Google? Like,
I would start with a Google search.
Okay.
If you care a lot about solving homelessness. So homeless shelter in Central Indiana.
Got
You're
it.
going to get a great list. There's also networking events for nonprofits where they are promoting themselves, doing almost trade show sort of setups to recruit volunteers. There's a fantastic one in Indianapolis called Get On Board.
Okay.
And it is a showcase of the most amazing nonprofits in Central Indiana where they have tables and you can go learn about them. You can sign up to volunteer, and then they start to work with you on being a potential board member. You don't have to have a lot of money to be a board member of an organization, right? We think of boards from huge art museums and educational institutions, and a lot of those board members have a lot of money. But every nonprofit needs a board of directors, and sometimes your talents as a board member might be in marketing and helping them promote themselves in social media, or figuring out their brand. Your expertise might be in financial management. Right? And then everybody needs a really great bookkeeper or CPA on their board or legal advice. And sometimes if it's aligned with a particular profession, if you're a doctor, you may really be useful on a board of directors for an organization that is serving some sort of medical need or diagnoses within the community. So make sure it aligns with you, but do a little research. They're easy to find. And reach out. I mean, every nonprofit I know looks for board members. They want really great board members, but they don't know how to find you either.
Wow.
So reaching out to them really helps.
That's good to know. And I think the board members has a term limit, right? Or the number of...
Most nonprofits have a term limit for their board of directors. Might be 2 to 3 years. So a couple years to serve on the board. Volunteering is a really great way to start to see if you even like that cause. Are they organized? Do they manage their volunteers really well? Does it look like they steward dollars that have been donated really well? And that lets you get to know the program before you commit to being a board member. And board members, their ultimate responsibility is the fiscal management of a nonprofit organization. So they're looking at the big picture. So sometimes if you're a really strategic person, a board table is exactly where you need to be because they need strategic thinkers to solve a lot of problems.
When you said if to volunteer to see if it's a good fit, like are they organized? I'm like, well, if you're the organized type, maybe you need to be there to help them or be organized.
Yes.
That's a good one. Okay, so we've talked about where you can find this nonprofit. So you said just go on Google and you find them, and they're always looking to get you to. So I know there's some people that are looking to start a nonprofit. Like I have heard, so we've done the gala twice now, and we've raised money multiple times, to support a nonprofit organization. And I've heard multiple people come to me to say, well, why don't you start a nonprofit organization? And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. Neither do I want to go into that because it seems overwhelming. But you're an expert in this area. So what does that even look like? Where do I even begin? Like, I'm not sure that I want to do it, but I'm sure there's some people that are like, they just have that heart of service and they want to do more. Like, how do they even start the process?
Founders of nonprofits are extremely passionate about what their cause is, or they have come up with a unique solution or a unique service to fit a need that very likely they have experienced themselves. And so they come from a point of passion, but they're not always business people. They're not always experienced in running a business, and a nonprofit is a business, but it's different than your typical like setting up an LLC. It's just different. The rules are different. The policy is different. Taxing is different, right? Financial management is different. So I would first caution anybody before they just started a nonprofit to think through what that's going to mean for them, and see if there is potentially another nonprofit already doing that work that instead they could become very involved in and supporting. Because we definitely don't want to duplicate a lot of efforts.
That's right.
Instead, we want to work collaboratively to improve them. But it's a process. You have to apply through the IRS for a nonprofit status. You need to establish your board of directors. You need to have bylaws, just like you would when you're setting up a business, right? You still need bylaws and who's responsible, who's ultimately responsible, and then figuring out how you fund that program. And that's the overwhelming part for so many people who want to start a nonprofit is how do I get paid, right? How do I fund this program? A lot of the nonprofits that I work with now, my clients, are founders or they're board members who started a nonprofit, and they're still not to the point where they can pay themselves.
Wow.
Because it takes a lot of resources to do that, and it's hard to get started from zero. You know, we look at big nonprofits in the community have millions and millions of dollars, right? They get huge grants. They started somewhere too.
Right.
So it's a process and it takes time, but it also takes a little bit of patience. So I really try to work with founders who have started that, have all that passion and drive, but just need somebody to come alongside them and help them work through the problems and know what the steps are to take, and building out, giving them the confidence to build out a program and step outside and ask for a contribution or ask for a grant or ask for a sponsorship with confidence in themselves to be the face of that organization. Because that's usually the roadblock that we see founders come up on, where they have a brilliant idea and they're so passionate. But raising money is hard.
Tell me about it.
It's really hard. And so when you hear no a couple times, then you start to step back and wonder, did I make the right decision?
So you say confidence, and I think that's something that a lot of us can relate it with, either a nonprofit or a for-profit business. Like, it just, the confidence to go out and sell whatever it is that you offer, or to even ask money when you necessarily are not giving anything in return. I can see how hard that is. So what do you say? How can we overcome that, like that lack of confidence? Because I know that's what you help your clients with.
You know, I have been raising money for different missions for over 20 years. Yeah. And I joke that I beg people for money for a job.
Right.
But I don't, because it's a mindset place that you have to be in when you're raising money, because you're not begging for money. You are creating an opportunity and offering an opportunity for somebody to invest in something much bigger than themselves. You're offering an opportunity for them to have a meaningful impact on an issue that they care about.
Wow.
And if you position it as that, you're not begging.
Right.
You're giving them a gift to be able to give back to something they really care about.
Right.
And you just never know where somebody's at when they're even asked that question.
So it sounds like you have to remove yourself from the equation and make it about the mission, the vision. And it's really about giving people the opportunity to contribute to a larger purpose.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. I also think sometimes how we were raised to think about money makes a big difference on how we can talk about it.
Right.
Right. So we were taught, like, don't talk about money, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics. And so especially at sometimes a generational perspective, we've just been raised for it to be uncomfortable, or we were raised at, my family didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. And so it was more like, hold on to what you have. Right. So if you have a mindset as a fundraiser of scarcity, then you are going to be scared to ask, because you also feel like you need to hold on to things. But if you approach your nonprofit work, your charitable work with abundance and understanding that people will not give more than they have, and that you're creating an opportunity for them to have meaningful impact, then it's no longer about scarcity. And you're starting from a position and a mindset of positivity and asking, because your mission's really important, and it's having an impact on someone or something. And you should be proud to tell people about that, but also not so unproud that you don't ask, right? You have to ask.
Right. And so I'm thinking a little bit now in terms of marketing. So part of the way I imagine you would ask is also showing some of the work that you've done, so that people can get an understanding of this is what you're contributing to.
Yes. Results.
Right. The results.
Yes. It is raising money for a charity is not unlike sales, right?
Right.
You have to prove that your product solves a problem.
Right.
And that everybody who buys your product is in a better place afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Charitable work is exactly the same, right? So if your program is about supporting individuals who are facing addiction, who have substance use disorder, then your programs are reducing their use, they're reducing their recidivism into reusing substances and they're staying in recovery, they're living and they have a sober living mentality, like those are your results. So nonprofits also have to measure those results and know that somebody who went through their program started at A and they ended at Z. And what was the outcome and result of their work through that program. Big funders, when we get into grant writing and requesting grants from foundations or from corporations, they have to see results in order to make that investment. So that's like a phase 2 for most nonprofits. You get started, and most of the people who are donating to you are like your family and your friends and your most immediate network. But then as you're moving towards appealing for big grants to fund your program, you've got to have those results. So making sure that things are being measured, you've got surveys in place, and you know what your outcomes are going to be. It's just the same as if you would from a product that you sell.
Right. Okay, I have 2 more questions here. Number 1, what about those that are just starting out? Like this is a brand new idea and you maybe or may or not have like a result yet.
Yeah.
How do you go about that?
Right. So it would greatly depend on whatever your mission was, right? But I would start by outlining, just as you would with your business, right? Who's the audience? So if your program is about empowering young girls, okay? So how are they feeling today before they start your program that empowers young girls? And then it's a 6-month camp,
Okay.
right? Where do you want the girls to be at the ends of the 6-month camp? Okay, well, we're going to talk about financial literacy. We're going to talk about body awareness. We're going to talk about relationships, positive relationships. We're going to talk about self-confidence. And through your programs, you would have measurement tools that you might create. There might be a survey. How did learning about this make you feel? Right? Do you feel like you have more confidence in yourself, in your skin, at the end of camp than you did at the beginning of the camp? Those are easy ways to start to measure your outcome. And then sometimes it's just metrics. Like 300 girls went through the camp.
That makes sense now.
Right?
Yeah.
90% of them felt a greater sense of self-confidence when they finished camp. Just easy tools that can show that your mission has impact and that you are on that path to telling that story.
That's interesting. So you've mentioned program multiple times, and I was like, what is a program? I thought you just but I think you just described it to like just a series of steps or actions or something like that you take those, the people through to get the result.
Yeah. If your program is how you help people, right? So your program might be providing resources. It might be providing like a camp, a class, a course. Your program might be shelter. Your program might be food access, whatever that is. But everything is in the nonprofit sector is programmatic, right? Who are you serving and how are you serving them?
Wow. So I know you worked with MIBO for several years, and that is something that's also close to my heart, like helping women and children. Just give us some stats, with, people in that, people that are that have the need in MIBO.
Yeah, so for 10 years, I ran the MIBO Realtor Foundation. We were a grant-making organization. So we raised money from the real estate industry and created grants for local charities who are solving homelessness in central Indiana. The vast majority of those who are experiencing homelessness in central Indiana are children. The leading cause of homelessness for women and children was domestic violence. And of course, mental health, substance use disorder, the number of poverty,
Right.
and primarily poverty were the leading reasons for homelessness. And so that was such an amazing experience for me because I got to reach into a lot of different causes and learn a lot about a lot of different causes that all lead to somebody not having a safe place to call home every day. The way they got there is different. The reasons they got there are different, but ultimately that was the problem that we were trying to solve. It's a huge issue in central Indiana, and it's a huge issue everywhere. But we have as many as 12,000 people will experience homelessness each year in central Indiana. And you see them if you go downtown for just about anything. The unhoused in our community are very, very visible in the downtown area. But the ones you don't see are the families with kids.
Right.
And so it's shocking when I say like the average age of a homeless person is 7 years old, because you just like, that's not who you see. You see an older man on the corner or at Circle Center Mall. You don't see children because the mom would lose her kiddos if you saw her. So, but that is the reality of homelessness in central Indiana. It's families who can't afford rent, or their rent has been skyrocketing in the past 5 years. Childcare is far too expensive, right? Transportation is a big challenge in central Indiana. If you don't have an operating car, but you need to get one child childcare over here, but your job is over on the west side, you spend hours on a bus system, and it's not manageable for families.
Right.
Plus, our wages have not been increasing as well. So it's just a number of things that sort of rolls all together. But that was the greatest thing I learned running the Realtor Foundation for my board, was just how much housing instability impacts families, and that there are just far too many solutions for them.
Wow, that is so heartbreaking. And I remember. I want to go back to a story that you told, or I've heard you speak of how you got into philanthropy. You were like, I think it was at a camp, and this little girl donated money so that another girl can be a part of that.
Yeah, when I was working with Girls Inc. of Greater Indianapolis, I was a women's studies major in college, so issues that impact women and girls have always been really close to my heart. So I love to work for Girls Inc., where they make young women strong, smart, and bold.
Yeah.
And one year we were doing a fundraising event. It's this luncheon. We have all of our campers, young women who are there, and they're showing off what they learned at camp, and they're so proud. And in the middle of the event, which is just genius, we send the campers around the room with little baskets to collect donations from the guests who are at the luncheon, because how can you not say no to this adorable girl?
Let me just say real quickly, that is an idea right there. So if you're thinking, well, how do I raise money? You just got one right here.
Yes. You can't say no when there's a little girl with a basket standing in front of you. Anyway, at the end of the luncheon, this little girl comes up to me, because I'm collecting all of the contributions they had collected, and she hands me $5, like her own $5, and says, like, I have loved camp, and I just want somebody else to be able to go to camp. Aww. And I mean, she was probably 7. I don't remember how, she was young, and it was probably the only $5 she had, but it meant so much to her to have that experience. Yeah. She wanted somebody else to have it. And that's what philanthropy is all about, right? Wow. Yeah. When just paying it forward to somebody else because you have been blessed in so many ways, or you have lived it and you know what it feels like. Giving back and paying it forward just fills your cup in such a way. But that little girl, I would just always remember her passing her only $5 off for another kiddo to have that experience that she had had and loved.
Wow. Even the kids, they're teaching us a lesson right there. Like it's not only about giving the big money, like just a little bit here and there. The time that you spend to volunteer on a board, even if you don't have the money, like using your talent, they go a long way.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Wow. So if you can give us a number, I know you've raised a ton of money in your 20 years of doing this. Can you give us a ballpark of how much you have helped raise?
I have raised a lot of money. I've worked with a lot of really large organizations and raised a lot of money. There are definitely some high points. I started in my career at IU, at the IU Foundation, and I was working in direct mail. So, when you get like a mailing with stickers or address envelope, something in your envelope. That's what I was learning to do at IU. And we had mailings that raised as much as major gift donors, as much as the major gift officers would get from one contributions. And it was amazing that I could get, 1,000 people to respond to a mailing and raise as much money as they were getting from one ask.
Wait a minute. So does that still work?
Yes.
Oh, yes, my God. Because I feel like I just threw away. Wow.
Direct mails definitely still should always be part of your fundraising strategy.
That's another tip right there.
You don't get enough good mail anymore. You
that's
get
true.
bills and junk. But when you get a beautiful letter that tells you about what your $50 donation would do, or thanks you for your $50 donation, it's certainly generational. But some of the best responders to direct mail for nonprofits are millennials who feel like people stop sending mail, and they respond just beautifully. And older generations do really well, but you should always have direct mail as just another touch point for organizations. It's more expensive than sending an email or a social media post, but I loved seeing the response that we could get from direct mail when I was at IU. The Realtor Foundation, when I was running that organization, we started granting $100,000 a year when I started. When I left, we were granting $300,000 a year.
Oh my God.
And that was really, really big, because it was being able to say yes to more causes, yes to more missions, bigger grants. Over time, we would have grantees that they started out with $2,500 grants, and we moved them up to $10,000 or $15,000. And for a small organization, that's huge.
Wow.
And it was a dependable income source, a dependable grant that they could get year after year after year. Wow. So I was really proud of how we could grow that program. But like I said, sometimes my favorite wins have been the $5 from the little girl, those sorts of experiences.
Wow. Oh, wow, that's amazing. So I know you have a wealth of experience, and you've actually given us a ton, even in this 30 minutes or so. How can people reach out to you, and how do you help them?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I'm sure there's like someone out there, like, because I know you've helped me personally. Yeah. You've actually helped a lot of people, even in the course of this conversation. But there's some people that need a lot more help, hand holding and things like that. Yes. So
reach out to me on LinkedIn. Okay. I would love to connect there, or visit my website, sproutfundraising.com. But I am available. I would love to do a consultation call and a brainstorming call with any nonprofit that needs just a little bit of strategy. Do a quick 5-minute fix for you.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a process, and I have done a little bit of everything in the world of fundraising, and every organization is unique,
right?
And the strategies that are going to work for them are unique. Their audiences are unique, and so I can't say here's your playbook,
right?
Because that wouldn't fit everybody. Absolutely. And so I want to help organizations identify what's the best strategies for them, what's going to be a quick win to get cash flowing quick, right. And then what are long-term strategies that are going to really shoot them in the direction that they need to be going. So reach out on LinkedIn. I would love to have a conversation with anybody.
I feel like, okay, I didn't specifically ask the question about what sets you apart, but I feel like the conversation basically showcased what sets Sprout Consulting apart. Because like you're very, like your passion shines through. You're like, in this conversation, you give multiple ways for people to so, and I don't know how many people do that.
Yeah. I will say that the big distinguisher for me and my company is that I am hands-on and actually do the work with and for the nonprofit. So versus here's your plan and here's some ideas. Like I implement it with them.
Oh wow.
So I might write the direct mail appeal for them.
Oh wow.
Write the grant, or come up with a sponsorship package and the benefits.
And that's very helpful, because for people that don't have no idea how to run a business, a nonprofit organization, like them just having someone take care of that is so helpful. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. This has been like really, really impactful. Thank you so much. So I'll put all the links in the comments. We already know how that goes. Make sure you check the comments for links and the website too, so you can book a consultation. She's going to give you a 5-minute fix if that's all you need, or even have a longer conversation to find out the strategy that works specifically for you.
Yeah. I also have a newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website. And I do a monthly newsletter with different tips and tricks and some free resources to help organizations get going, or identifying like, here's a great podcast on this topic that would be really helpful for an organization. So does a great freebie information each month.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
coming.
having me, Victoria.
Well, until next time, make sure you continue to find ways to give back. We've talked about many options here, but it's important to include that in our business so that we can leave a legacy and also help others in our community too. All right, take care.